Hey, and welcome back to JBC English Learning Academy. My name is Laura, and I'm here to guide you on your journey to clear, confident, and natural English. If you truly love Jesus, like the video, subscribe to the channel, keep watching the video believing in Jesus, you will learn something good, and comment to let us know what you are watching. Your support truly helps this channel grow. Alright. Take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin today's session. In the beginning, I want you to imagine something simple, something small, something almost invisible. Imagine a whisper, a little sound, a quiet breath, something so soft that many people in a loud world would not even notice. But you notice it, because this whisper is your English. This whisper is your voice. And in this moment, as you listen to me, I want you to feel how your own voice grows warmer, stronger, clearer. You are here because you want to speak with confidence. You want pronunciation that feels natural, controlled, calm. You want to speak without fear of accent problems. You want to speak in a way that people understand you easily, smoothly, gently. And I want you to know that you are not alone. Every learner begins with a whisper. Every speaker begins with uncertainty. Every storyteller begins with a quiet voice that slowly becomes louder. And tonight, whether you are listening in the morning, or late at night, or while you walk, or while you rest, you and I will take this journey together. This journey of sound. This journey of speaking. This journey where pronunciation becomes simple and stress-free, not heavy, not painful, not something that makes you worry about every small sound. I want you to relax first. I want you to breathe. Because clear pronunciation begins not with the mouth and not even with the tongue. Clear pronunciation begins with calm. So right now, take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Feel the quiet inside you. Feel your mind opening, softening. Because when your mind relaxes, your voice follows. And now, listen to my voice. Listen to the rhythm, the softness, the slow pace. Your mind is already learning. Your ears are already adjusting. You are learning pronunciation not through rules, but through experience, through feeling. Through the story that you and I are about to live together. The story begins with a young woman named Mira. Her story will guide you. She is not a hero of a movie. She is not a perfect speaker. She is just like many learners around the world. She is like you, curious, motivated, ready to improve. Mira always dreamed of speaking English clearly, but she worried about her accent. She worried people would not understand her. She worried that her pronunciation was too heavy, too different, too foreign. And every time she tried to speak, she became smaller inside, like she wanted to hide her voice in a corner. But still, she tried. She practiced words. She watched videos. She repeated phrases again and again. And yet, she still felt something was missing. She felt that pronunciation was a mountain too tall to climb. Her voice never sounded like the speakers she admired. She thought her accent was a problem. She believed something was wrong with her. She believed she could never sound clear. And then one day, something changed. Something small. Something unexpected. Something like a whisper. It started on a warm afternoon when she went to a small library in her city. She loved libraries because they felt safe. Quiet places. Places where nobody judged her voice. Places where she could breathe. On that day, she found a book, a very old, very thin book with a simple title, The Art of Speaking Clearly. She opened it with curiosity, and inside, she found handwritten notes from someone who lived decades before her. Someone who wrote about sound the way a painter writes about colors. Someone who understood that pronunciation is not about trying to sound like someone else. Pronunciation is about shaping your own voice so the world can understand you. She felt something warm in her chest. She felt hope. When she returned home that evening, she sat by her window. The sun was going down. The sky was soft orange, almost sleepy, and she opened the little book again. She read slowly, word by word. The first sentence of the book touched her heart. It said, "Your voice is not wrong. It is simply waiting for guidance." She read that sentence again and again, and she realized something. Her accent was not a problem. It was simply a part of her story. Pronunciation was not about deleting her accent. Pronunciation was about bringing clarity to her accent, making it easier for the world to understand her, making her voice shine, not disappear. And in that moment, she made a decision that you are making right now too. She decided to learn pronunciation not with pressure, not with fear, not with shame, but with patience, with curiosity, with the gentle rhythm of someone who wants to understand sound deeply. She whispered to herself, "I will take it step by step." And that whisper began the journey you and I are now entering. The next morning, Mira woke up early. She sat at her desk, and she decided she would explore one thing at a time. She placed her hand on her chest and breathed out. And she realized something important. Every sound begins with air, with breath, with the flow of your lungs and your throat. And when your breath is tense, your pronunciation becomes tense. When your breath is calm, your pronunciation becomes calm. So she began with simple breathing, long, slow breaths that relaxed her voice. And the more she breathed, the more she understood something. English pronunciation is not born in the mouth alone. It is born in the entire body, the shoulders, the neck, the lungs, the mind. And slowly, she began to feel her voice opening. She began to feel her body releasing the tension she carried every time she spoke English. And with each breath, she whispered soft English words to herself. Here, there, clear, near. She spoke slowly, gently. And every time a sound felt strange, she breathed again. She whispered again. She softened her voice again. And she realized that pronunciation improves when you treat your voice with kindness. When you stop forcing. When you stop rushing. When you stop punishing yourself for mistakes. You do not need to remove your accent. You simply need to guide your sounds with calm, steady practice. And this idea changed her. The fear inside her began to shrink. The confidence inside her began to grow. But of course, every journey has its challenge. And Myra's challenge came 1 week later during a conversation group at the community center. She went there because she wanted to practice speaking with real people. She walked into the room with a small smile, feeling hopeful. But when she introduced herself, she noticed something. A man in the group leaned forward and said, "Sorry, could you say that again?" Her stomach dropped. The old fear returned. The voice inside her said, "See? You're not clear enough." She repeated her sentence. The man nodded politely, but she could feel her confidence shaking. Later, another woman asked her, "Where are you from? Your accent is beautiful, but I can't understand some words." And Mira felt small again. She felt like she was shrinking. She felt like all her practice was useless. She felt her whisper fading. She walked home with heavy steps. And as she sat alone in her room, the small book open on her lap, she asked herself, "Why is this so hard? Why can't I speak clearly?" Her eyes were soft with sadness. But she remembered something the book said. The moment you feel discouraged is the moment you must listen more carefully. So she closed her eyes. She breathed. And she listened, not to the world, but to herself. In that quiet moment, she realized something important. She had been practicing sounds in isolation, words, phrases, little pieces of English. But she had not yet practiced the true key to pronunciation, the connection between sounds. Because clear pronunciation is not only about saying words correctly. Clear pronunciation is about how words move together, how your mouth shifts from one sound to the next, how your breath continues the flow. She realized that in the conversation group, she was focusing too much on each individual sound. She was trying to be perfect. But perfect pronunciation does not create clear speaking. Natural pronunciation creates clear speaking, relaxed speaking, connected speaking. And she had not practiced that yet, because nobody had taught her. She whispered to herself, I need to learn how to connect my sounds. I need to learn the flow. And that small realization became her turning point. She turned the page of the little book, and there she saw a line written in faded ink. Clarity is not sharpness. Clarity is smoothness. Those words entered her heart like warm light. She understood that speaking softly and smoothly would help more than speaking sharply and perfectly. She looked out the window. The night sky was stretching across the city like a calm blanket. And she felt something inside her shift. A new kind of determination. Not the tense determination of someone trying to prove themselves, but the gentle determination of someone ready to explore. Someone ready to understand sound the way an artist understands paint. Someone ready to let go of fear. The next morning, she began her new practice. She started with a simple sentence, I want to learn English clearly. She spoke it once, then again, then again. But this time, she did not try to pronounce every single word sharply. She let the words slide together. She connected the sounds. I want to learn English clearly. At first, it felt strange. But slowly, she felt the rhythm. She felt the natural movement of the sentence. And soon, it began to sound more like the English she heard in movies and on the street. Not perfect, not native, but natural, clear, smooth. And she smiled, because for the first time, she felt like her voice had space to breathe. Over the next few days, she continued practicing. And as she practiced, she discovered something surprising. Pronunciation is not only about sounds, it is also about emotion. When she felt nervous, her voice became tight. When she felt calm, her sentences became clearer. When she felt curious, her rhythm improved. And when she felt joy, her words flowed like water. She learned that your emotional state shapes your pronunciation more than any grammar rule. And this gave her power. Because emotions can be changed. Emotions can be understood. Emotions can be softened, transformed, guided. She began practicing speaking while smiling, speaking while relaxed, speaking while breathing slowly. And she noticed something beautiful. Her voice was becoming clearer. Her accent was becoming easier to understand. And she felt proud, not because she was removing her accent, but because she was guiding it. Like a musician tuning their instrument. Like a painter adjusting their brush. She was learning the art of clarity. But the journey did not stop there. Because one evening, as she sat at her desk, she received an email. An unexpected opportunity. An international online event was looking for volunteers to share short stories in English. It was not a competition. It was simply a place for learners around the world to speak and connect. And something inside her whispered, Maybe you should try." At first, she resisted. She thought, my voice is still not good enough. I still make mistakes. I still have trouble with some sounds. But then she remembered where she started. She remembered the whisper that began everything. And she decided she would try. Not to be perfect, but to grow. To see what her voice could do. To step into the world with the English she had been shaping day by day. So she clicked apply. And in that simple moment, without realizing it, she took the next step of her transformation. And now, as you listen to this story, I want you to take a moment to think about your own journey. Think about your own pronunciation. Think about your own fears, your own worries, your own voice. You are exactly where you need to be. You are doing exactly what you need to do. You are improving with every breath, every sound, every moment of listening. And just like Mira, you are learning that pronunciation is not a test. It is an art. It is a gentle practice. A soft shaping of sound. A slow dance between breath and movement. And every time you practice, even when it feels difficult, you are growing. You are becoming clearer. You are becoming more confident. And you are becoming the speaker you want to be. As this first section comes to an end, I want you to hold one simple takeaway in your heart. Your accent is not a problem. Your voice is not wrong. Pronunciation is not about changing who you are. Pronunciation is about guiding the sounds you already have. You can speak clearly. You can speak confidently. And together, you and I will continue this journey, step by step, whisper by whisper, chapter by chapter, until your voice becomes something you love, something you trust, something you can share with the world without fear. And now, when you are ready, we will move on to the next section of this long, cinematic, gentle story. Because your journey is only beginning. When the day of the online event finally arrived, Mira felt her heart beating like a quiet drum inside her chest. Not too fast, not too slow, just steady enough to remind her that something important was about to happen. She sat at her small wooden desk, the same desk where she had practiced her breathing, her soft sentences, her gentle connections, and she placed her hands on the cool surface to calm herself. The morning light came through her curtains like thin gold, warm and encouraging, and she whispered to herself, "I will speak slowly. I will speak clearly. I will speak gently." That small whisper, that little promise, was her anchor in the middle of all her worries. She looked into the screen and saw faces from all around the world, people from different countries, different cultures, different languages, all ready to speak English together. They smiled shyly, waved, adjusted their cameras, fixed their headphones, and waited for the event to begin. As she watched them, something inside her began to soften. She realized that everyone in the meeting was here for the same reason. They all wanted to practice. They all wanted to improve. They all wanted to be understood. Nobody was here to judge. Nobody was here to laugh. Everyone was simply trying their best, just like her. And suddenly, her fear became a little lighter. Then the host appeared on the screen. His name was Daniel, a soft-spoken man with a warm voice. He said, "Welcome, everyone. Today is about your voice. Not perfect English. Not perfect pronunciation. Just your voice." And when she heard that, she felt a tiny spark of confidence. The event began with simple introductions, and each participant had to say their name and one sentence about themselves. When it was her turn, she took a slow breath, felt her shoulders relax, and said, "Hello, I'm Mira, and I love learning English because it helps me understand the world better." Her voice was soft but steady. Her sounds were connected but gentle. She did not rush. She did not push. And as soon as she finished, several people nodded and smiled. One person said, "Very clear." Another said, "Beautiful." And she felt a soft warmth spread across her chest. Something inside her whispered, "You can do this." After introductions, the host invited everyone to take part in a small activity. He said, "Today we will explore the one sound that changes everything in English, the sound of calm air." The participants looked confused. Calm air? What did that mean? But then the host continued. "Before we learn pronunciation, we must learn the sound that carries pronunciation. And that is breath." He told everyone to place one hand on their stomach and breathe in slowly through the nose. Mira did. She felt her stomach rise gently like a small wave. Then he said to breathe out slowly through the mouth, like blowing warm air onto a cold window. She breathed out. And she felt something, a soft vibration, a warm flow, a relaxed rhythm. He said, "This breath is the foundation of clear English. Without calm breath, your sounds become tight. When your sounds become tight, your pronunciation becomes unclear." Mira understood. She remembered her early practice, how breathing opened her voice. And now she understood why. Breath is the first sound. Breath is the secret sound behind every English word. Then Daniel said something that surprised everyone. He said, "We will begin with the H sound, because H is the sound of breath becoming voice." He asked everyone to whisper softly, "H, H, 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 H," just the air, not a word. Mira whispered. And she felt how simple it was. No tension, no pressure, just a warm breath. Then he said, "Now try, here. Help. Hold. How?" And as Mira repeated the words, she heard something new in her own voice, clarity. Not perfection, but clarity. The words flowed with more ease. And she understood why. The H sound relaxed her mouth. It guided her breath. It helped her start every word without tension. She realized that pronunciation improvement often begins with small sounds, invisible sounds, sounds people ignore, but these little sounds are what open the door to clear speaking. After the warm-up, Daniel presented the main exercise for the day. He said, "Today we will shape the most important rhythm in English, stress." Mira listened carefully because she had always struggled with this. In her language, every syllable had almost equal importance. But in English, some syllables are strong, some are soft, and the rhythm is what makes sentences easy or difficult to understand. Daniel said, "If your stress is correct, your pronunciation becomes clear, even if individual sounds are not perfect. But if your stress is wrong, your pronunciation becomes confusing, even if your sounds are perfect." This idea surprised Mira. She realized she had been trying so hard to perfect every sound that she had ignored the music of the language. She imagined a song where every beat had the same volume. It would sound strange. English without stress is the same, flat, confusing, difficult to follow. Daniel gave everyone a sentence to practice. "I didn't know you were coming today." He said, "Listen to the stress." And he repeated it slowly, "I didn't know you were coming today." Mira heard the music immediately. Two main beats, didn't and coming. The rest of the words were soft, almost like shadows. She repeated the sentence, and it felt different from how she had said it before. Her tongue moved lightly, her mouth relaxed, her breath flowed. She whispered the sentence again and again. And with each repetition, she felt the rhythm entering her voice like waves entering the shore. She realized something important. Pronunciation is not about pushing. Pronunciation is about releasing. letting the rhythm guide you, letting the stress shape the melody, letting the breath carry you forward. She began to understand English not as a list of rules, but as a language of music. The participants continued practicing, and Mira slowly gained confidence. She no longer felt like a beginner. She felt like a learner who understood something deeper. She began to smile as she spoke. She began to enjoy the feeling of her voice moving smoothly. And then, something unexpected happened. At the end of the pronunciation session, Daniel said, "Now, each person will read one small story aloud, and we will practice clarity, stress, and calm breathing together." Mira felt her stomach tighten for a moment. Reading aloud in front of people was always difficult for her. But she also knew that this was her moment to grow. Each person took a turn reading a short paragraph. Some were nervous. Some spoke quickly. Some paused too long. But everyone tried their best. Nobody judged. Nobody laughed. People simply listened. When it was Myra's turn, she looked at the paragraph on the screen. It was a simple story about a girl walking through a forest. She took a breath. She relaxed her shoulders. And she began reading. Slowly, gently, carefully. She connected her sounds. She followed the rhythm. She used the calm breath she had practiced. And something special happened. Halfway through the paragraph, her voice became steady. Strong in a soft way. Clear in a warm way. Her accent was still present, but it no longer blocked the meaning. It carried the meaning. It added a gentle color. When she finished reading, the room was quiet for a moment. Then Daniel said, "That was beautiful. Very natural." Someone else said, "So clear." Another person said, "You sound confident." And Mira felt her heart open like a small door letting in sunlight. She realized she had just spoken clearly in front of strangers. This was a small miracle for her. A moment she would never forget. After the event, she closed her laptop and sat in silence. But it was not the silence of fear or emptiness. It was the silence of growth. The silence of someone who has taken a step forward. The silence of someone who has discovered something powerful. She realized something important about pronunciation, something that you, listening right now, must also understand. Clear pronunciation begins with one sound, one breath, one moment of calm. And then it grows. It grows through practice. It grows through small discoveries. It grows through the courage to speak even when you are nervous. You do not fix pronunciation all at once. You guide it. You shape it. You let it transform slowly, like a small seed becoming a tree. And with each new moment of clarity, your confidence grows. That evening, Mira wrote in her journal. She wrote, "Today, I felt my voice." She wrote, "I am learning to guide my accent." She wrote, "I am not alone." And as she closed her journal, she looked at the little book on her desk. She opened to the next page, and there she saw a new sentence written in soft ink. "The first sound that changes everything is the sound of your courage." She whispered it aloud. "The sound of your courage." And she realized that courage has a sound. The sound of breathing before speaking. The sound of trying again after a mistake. The sound of letting your voice be heard even when you are scared. She understood that pronunciation is not only a technical skill. It is a personal journey. A journey where you discover the sound of who you are. And now, as you listen to this story, I want you to think about your own courage. Every time you speak English, even if your voice shakes a little, even if your accent feels heavy, even if someone asks you to repeat yourself, you are brave. You are practicing. You are stepping forward. And step by step, your voice becomes clearer. Your pronunciation becomes smoother. Your speaking becomes more natural. So for now, take a slow breath. Feel the calm air in your chest. Whisper softly, I can learn. I can improve. I can grow. Because just like Mira, you have already begun. And you will continue. This is only the second chapter of your story. Many discoveries are waiting for you. In the days that followed her online event, Mira felt something changing inside her, something gentle but steady, like a small river slowly carving its way through soft earth. She found herself speaking English to herself more often, not in a stressful way, not in a way that made her feel judged or nervous, but in a calm, curious way. She whispered phrases while she cooked. She practiced soft rhythms while she walked. She repeated short sentences when she brushed her hair, and she noticed that her voice was beginning to feel more familiar. Not foreign. Not strange. Not like a voice borrowed from another world. But like her own voice, shaped gently by new sounds. And as she continued her daily activities, she began to understand something important. Pronunciation isn't a thing you study for 1 hour and then forget. Pronunciation is a companion, something that stays with you, something that grows with you, something that walks beside you as you speak, read, listen, or even breathe. One morning, as she sat near her window with a warm cup of tea, she opened the little book again. The next line she saw said, "Pronunciation is the bridge between your voice and the world." She read it slowly. She whispered it softly. And she felt its meaning deep inside. Because she realized that pronunciation was not the goal, communication was the goal. Understanding was the goal. Connection was the goal. Pronunciation was simply the bridge that helped her reach people more easily. And that idea softened her heart, made her shoulders relax, made her breath calm. She thought, I don't need to build the whole bridge in one day. But I can place one stone, then another, and another. As she turned the page, she noticed that this chapter of the book focused on mouth positions, but explained them in a way different from anything she had seen before. Most lessons she had watched online felt mechanical, like instructions for building a machine. But this book described sounds like movements of wind, shapes of water, curves of air. It said, the mouth is not a tool. It is an instrument. And pronunciation is the music it creates. Mira smiled at that idea. It made the whole process feel more human, more creative, more alive. So she read the next line carefully. To speak clearly, you must understand how your mouth changes shape between sounds. And she realized something. She had always focused on individual sounds, but she had rarely paid attention to transitions, the small movement from one sound to the next. And that was when she began to sense her next challenge, mastering transitions, the fluid movement that connects English sounds into natural speech. She started with simple transitions, like see it, say it, go out, come in. And she noticed something strange but interesting. When she said the words separately, everything felt fine. But when she said them together, the sounds seemed to blend, melt, connect, and her tongue had to move smoothly from one position to another. It was like moving from one step of a dance to the next without stopping in the middle. The book explained this movement as bridging, small bridges between sounds that allow the listener to follow the path of the voice without getting lost. So she practiced slowly. See it, see it, see it. She let the E sound stretch like a smile, and then she let her tongue fall lightly into the it. She tried again. Say it, say it, say it. She felt her mouth open for I and then close gently for it. It was a dance, a tiny movement, but she began to understand that this dance was the secret to natural English. Not perfect sounds, but connected sounds. As she practiced, she remembered the conversation group from before, the moment when someone said, "Could you say that again?" And suddenly she understood why they had trouble understanding her. It wasn't her accent. It wasn't her country. It wasn't her identity. It was simply that her transitions were not clear yet. Her words were separate islands, not connected by a bridge. The listener couldn't follow the path easily. And now she was learning to build that path. Slowly, gently, with patience, with curiosity. She practiced transitions while washing dishes, letting the water sound like soft white noise in the background. She practiced while walking in the park, letting the wind carry her voice. She practiced in her room at night, whispering gently so she wouldn't disturb her family. And each time she practiced, she felt her mouth becoming more flexible, more free, more expressive. Then one afternoon, something new happened. She was speaking to a shopkeeper in English, something she had done many times. But this time, she felt her voice flow differently. When she said, "Can I see it, please?" her words connected naturally. The shopkeeper didn't ask her to repeat anything. He understood her immediately. He responded quickly. The conversation felt smooth. Not heavy. Not complicated. Not slow. And she walked out of the shop with a small smile on her face because she realized she had just used her new skill in the real world. And the world had responded. Her bridge was working. But the journey didn't stop there. That evening, she found another line in the little book. It said, "To speak clearly, you must also learn the soft sounds, the sounds that hide inside the language." She tilted her head, curious. Soft sounds? What did that mean? The book explained, some English sounds are strong, but many are soft, quiet, almost invisible. These soft sounds guide the rhythm of English. Without them, speech becomes heavy. With them, speech becomes natural. She began practicing them slowly. "I want to go" became "I want to go." She whispered it again. "I want to go." At first it felt strange, like she was being lazy. But then she realized that this softening was what made English sound smooth. She tried another one. "I'm going to eat" became "I'm gonna eat." She whispered it. "I'm gonna eat." The sounds flowed more easily. She tried "there are a lot of people" and turned it into "there are a lot of people." And she understood something important. Natural pronunciation is not only about saying sounds clearly. It's about knowing which sounds to relax, which sounds to soften, which sounds to release like a short breath. And this understanding brought her a new kind of confidence because now she could hear the patterns in English that she never heard before. One day, while practicing these soft sounds, she felt inspired to record herself. She sat at her desk, placed her phone in front of her, and recorded a short paragraph. Then she listened to it, and she was surprised. Her voice sounded clearer, more natural, more connected. Not perfect, but alive. She compared it to a recording she made months earlier. The difference was huge. In the old recording, her speech was tight, every word separate, her breath short. In the new recording, her speech sounded soft, connected, relaxed. It was like she was finally hearing the version of herself she had always hoped for. And this made her heart fill with joy. But with joy came a new challenge, one she didn't expect. Because even though her pronunciation was improving, she still felt nervous when speaking with strangers. Her voice sometimes trembled. Her breath sometimes tightened. And she realized something. Pronunciation is not only about technique, it's also about confidence. She needed to learn how to speak clearly even when she felt scared. And so she decided to take a small risk. She signed up for a local English speaking club, a group that met every Friday evening, a group of people who wanted to improve their speaking skills, a group that welcomed beginners and intermediate learners, a group where she could practice in a safe, friendly environment. When she arrived at the club for the first time, she felt her heart bumping softly inside her chest. Not loudly, not painfully, just enough to remind her she was stepping outside her comfort zone. The room was bright. Colorful posters hung on the walls. People stood in small circles, chatting in English with soft but excited voices. And the leader of the group, a woman named Lila, welcomed her with a warm smile and said, "You're in the right place." That simple sentence softened Myra's nerves. Lila explained the rules of the club: speak slowly, listen carefully, don't judge, don't compare, and always support one another. It felt like a safe world, a world where her voice could grow. The first activity was simple. Everyone had to describe one object in the room. Mira chose a plant near the window. She said, "This plant is small, but it has long green leaves. I think it looks happy when the sun shines on it." And as she spoke, she focused on connecting her sounds, on relaxing her breath, on letting her words flow gently. When she finished, Lila smiled and said, "Very smooth, very clear." Someone else added, "Your rhythm is beautiful." And Mira felt warmth spreading in her chest again. She was learning. She was improving. The bridge she was building with her voice was reaching people. The second activity was more challenging. They had to explain something from their childhood, a memory, a moment, a sound. Mira hesitated. Talking about personal memories in English felt difficult. But she decided to try. She spoke about a small lantern her grandmother gave her when she was little, a lantern with tiny stars carved into the metal. She described how the lantern would glow softly at night, filling her room with warm, gentle light. As she spoke, her voice slowed naturally. She breathed softly between sentences. And something magical happened. For the first time, she felt like she could express emotion in English, not just information, not just words, but emotion. And people listened. They nodded. Their eyes softened. They understood her. And she realized something powerful. Pronunciation is not only about clarity, it is also about emotional expression. When your pronunciation becomes smoother, your emotions can travel through your voice more easily, and people can feel your story. At the end of the session, Lila told everyone to choose one sentence that represented their journey. One sentence that they would repeat next week. One sentence that would guide their growth. Mira thought for a moment. Then she chose her sentence. "My voice is becoming clearer every day." When she whispered it softly to herself, she felt it in her bones. She felt it in her breath. She felt it in her future. Because it was true. Day by day, her voice was changing. Her pronunciation was becoming smoother. Her confidence was becoming stronger. And the bridge she was building between her and the world was becoming more stable, more beautiful, more alive. Now, as you listen to this story, I want you to think about your own bridge, the bridge between your voice and the world. Every time you practice, you place one more stone. Every time you breathe calmly, you place another stone. Every time you soften a sound, connect a word, relax your mouth, or speak even when you feel nervous, you place another stone. And slowly, gently, naturally, your bridge becomes strong. Your pronunciation becomes clear. And the world begins to hear you with ease. So take a moment now. Breathe softly. Whisper to yourself, "My voice is growing." Because it is. And your journey, like Myra's, is just beginning. The following week arrived quietly, as if carrying a soft secret in the air, and Mira felt a warm mixture of anticipation and calmness as she prepared for the next meeting of her English-speaking club. She sat at her desk that morning with the little book open beside her, but instead of reading it, she simply looked at it, letting her eyes rest on the old, gentle handwriting inside. She felt grateful for this book, for its soft guidance, for its quiet wisdom. And she whispered her chosen sentence to herself again, "My voice is becoming clearer every day." The words were simple, but every time she spoke them, something inside her straightened, like a small flame standing taller. She stood up, walked to her window, and opened it. The morning air flowed in, carrying the soft sounds of her neighborhood, the distant hum of people walking, the rustle of leaves, the light footsteps of a cat passing by. And as she listened, she felt something new. She felt the silence between the sounds. She felt the pauses, the gentle spaces where nothing was said, but everything felt calm. And suddenly, an idea entered her mind. Pronunciation is not only about sounds, it is also about silence. The little book had mentioned this in an earlier chapter, but she had not understood it until now. Silence is part of speech. Silence shapes sound. Silence makes speech clearer. She whispered softly, "Silence helps the sound breathe." And it became the theme of her thinking that entire day. Later, as she prepared to leave for the English club, she wondered what new challenge she would meet. She put on her simple gray sweater, tied her hair loosely, and walked slowly to the community center. When she entered the room, she saw familiar faces smiling at her, faces that once felt intimidating but now felt comforting. Lila, the leader, welcomed her again with warm eyes and said, "Your calm energy brings peace to the room." Mira felt shy at the compliment, but she also felt grateful. It reminded her that speaking clearly is not only about how you talk, it's also about who you become as you learn. The room felt peaceful, bright, and full of gentle expectation. Everyone settled into a circle, and Lila explained the activity for the day. She said, "Today, we study the power of pauses, the small, meaningful silences that help people understand you." Mira smiled softly to herself. She couldn't believe it. The idea she had discovered that morning was now being taught in the club. It felt like a warm sign from the universe, guiding her path. Lila continued, "Many learners think clear pronunciation means speaking nonstop, filling every second with sound, pushing words together too quickly. But real clarity comes from giving your listener time to hear you, time to follow you, time to breathe with you." Then she demonstrated. She said one sentence quickly. I think she learned his pauses. Nobody understood her. Then she said the same sentence slowly, with gentle pauses. I think we should learn to use the pauses. Everyone nodded. The difference was huge. The second sentence felt alive, full of meaning, full of emotion, full of space. The first felt like noise. Mira realized another truth about English. Pauses are not mistakes. Pauses are tools. Pauses guide the listener. Pauses create clarity. Pauses carry emotion. And she realized that when she became nervous, she often spoke too fast, trying to hide her accent. But speaking fast only made her less clear. And now she understood what she must do: slow down, breathe, and allow silence to join her voice. The activity began. Lila asked each person to read a short paragraph, but to add gentle pauses where they felt the meaning needed space. When it was Myra's turn, she held the paper gently, breathed softly, and began reading. She noticed something beautiful. When she allowed pauses, her breath came naturally. When her breath came naturally, her sounds became clearer. When her sounds became clearer, her confidence rose. And after she finished, people nodded the same way they had last week. But this time, someone whispered, "So natural, like you're telling a story." And Mira felt tears almost rise, not from sadness, but from the gentle beauty of knowing she was growing. After the reading activity, Lila introduced something new, shadowing practice. She played a short recording of a calm English speaker telling a small story. The speaker used soft rhythms, gentle transitions, warm pauses, and natural flow. The instruction was simple: listen first, then repeat with the recording, matching the speaker's speed, pauses, and rhythm. Mira closed her eyes while listening, letting the voice wash over her like warm water. When she repeated the recording, she felt something shift inside her. She wasn't just saying words. She was moving with the rhythm. She was breathing with the voice. She was following the melody of English. And something surprising happened. Her accent softened, not because she tried to erase it, but because she learned the rhythm beneath it. Like music that becomes easier to dance to once you feel the beat. As the shadowing practice ended, Mira felt a soft excitement. She understood why these exercises worked. Shadowing wasn't copying. It was training the mouth, training the breath, training the rhythm, training the silence between sounds. She thought of the little bridges she had been building in her pronunciation. Now she felt like she had found a new bridge, the bridge of rhythm, a bridge of timing, a bridge of flow. Without rhythm, pronunciation feels heavy. With rhythm, it feels alive. After the club meeting, Mira walked home slowly, letting her mind replay the sounds, the pauses, the soft breaths, the rhythms she had practiced. The sky was turning a quiet blue as the sun began to fall behind the buildings. Streetlights started glowing like small lanterns in the distance. And as she walked, she practiced speaking to herself, not loudly, but softly. "I can hear the rhythm inside the silence." She paused naturally. Her breath felt steady. English began to feel less like something outside her and more like something inside her. Something she could shape. Something she could guide. Something she could grow. That night, she took her little book and sat by her window again. She opened to the next page, and she found a sentence that felt like a whisper from the universe. "Silence is the breath of meaning." She read it again. "Silence is the breath of meaning." And suddenly, she understood what she had been missing all this time. Pronunciation is not only about mouth positions, not only about connected words, not only about stress patterns. Pronunciation is also about giving your listener space to understand you, and giving yourself space to express yourself. She wrote in her journal, "I will speak with calm pauses. I will let my voice breathe. I will trust the silence." But her journey of mastering silence took an unexpected turn the next day. She decided to practice speaking with her cousin, who also knew some English. They planned to walk by the river and speak only in English for 30 minutes. The weather was warm. The river sparkled in the sunlight like a long, shining ribbon. Birds moved gently across the water, and the air felt soft. They walked side by side, speaking slowly in English. At first, everything felt smooth. Mira used pauses. She connected her words. Her voice flowed. But then, halfway through the conversation, her cousin asked her a complex question. "Why do you think people often feel insecure when they speak a second language?" Mira froze for a moment. It was a deep question. She wasn't sure how to answer. And suddenly, She felt pressure building inside her chest. She wanted to answer quickly, like she used to. She wanted to fill the silence before it became embarrassing. But she remembered the lesson from the club. Pauses are not mistakes. Pauses are part of communication. So she took a gentle breath. She let a quiet moment pass. And then she answered slowly, I think people worry because they want to be understood. And they think mistakes make them look weak. But maybe mistakes make us human. Her cousin nodded thoughtfully. That was beautiful, he said. You speak so calmly now. And Mira felt something warm inside her grow. She realized she had just used silence in real conversation. And the world had responded with understanding. But the day brought another discovery too. Later that evening, Mira listened to a podcast of two native English speakers talking. As she listened, she realized something surprising. They paused all the time. They stretched out words. They sometimes repeated themselves. They sometimes hesitated. She smiled. Native speakers are not perfect, she whispered to herself. They use silence too. This realization lifted a weight from her shoulders. She didn't need to sound perfect. She didn't need to rush. She didn't need to fear silence. She simply needed to speak with intention, with calmness, with presence. The following morning, she practiced speaking in front of her mirror. She looked at her reflection and said slowly, my voice can carry meaning. Then she paused. She breathed. She continued, I don't need to rush. I don't need to push. I only need to feel the rhythm. And she noticed something new in her eyes, a softness, a maturity, a small light of confidence. A week later, during the next club meeting, Lila introduced a new exercise, storytelling pauses. Everyone had to tell a short story, but with gentle pauses that created emotion, clarity, and suspense. When it was Myra's turn, she told a simple story about a cat she once rescued from a rainy street. She spoke gently. She paused after moments that held emotion. She let the silence between sentences carry the feeling. When she spoke of the rain, she paused softly. When she spoke of the cat's fear, her voice lowered. When she spoke of bringing the cat home, her voice warmed. The room became still as she spoke. People listened. People felt her story. And when she finished, the group stayed silent for a moment, not because they were confused, but because they were touched. Then they clapped softly. Lila said, Mira, you don't just speak clearly. You speak with emotion. And Mira felt tears in her eyes again. She realized something powerful. Pronunciation is not only about being understood. It is about being felt. When you use pauses, when you use silence, when you let your voice breathe, your listeners feel your message. That night, as she sat with the little book again, she found one more sentence. In every silence, your voice prepares to shine. She closed the book gently and whispered to herself, I understand. Because she did. She now understood that silence was not empty. Silence was part of the music. Silence was part of the meaning. Silence was part of the connection. And as you listen to this story right now, I want you to feel the same truth. You do not need to speak fast. You do not need to fill every moment with sound. You do not need to fear pauses. Silence is your friend. Silence helps your pronunciation. Silence makes your speech clearer. Silence gives you time to breathe. Silence gives your listener time to understand you. Silence gives your story space to grow. So breathe gently now. Whisper to yourself, I will speak with calm pauses. And remember, your voice doesn't need to shout to be powerful. It simply needs to breathe. The next stage of Myra's journey began quietly, almost without her noticing it, like a gentle shift in the weather, like the slow movement of dawn across the sky. She woke up one morning and felt something different in the air around her, something peaceful, something warm, something inviting. It was as if English itself had become softer in her mind, like a friend sitting beside her rather than a difficult subject standing far away. She sat at her small wooden desk, opened her journal, and wrote one simple sentence at the top of the page. Today, I want English to feel natural. She looked at those words, breathed softly, and felt a small smile form on her lips. Because she realized that pronunciation was no longer just a technical skill she practiced every day. It was becoming something deeper, something emotional, something connected to who she was becoming. English was no longer a subject. It was beginning to feel like a language inside her. And she understood that this was the next step, learning to speak with feeling, not only with technique. Later that morning, she opened the little book again and found a sentence written in faded ink. When you feel the language begins to feel you. She read it slowly, letting each word settle inside her mind like soft stones on a quiet path. She closed her eyes. She breathed deeply, and she whispered the sentence again. She realized that speaking English clearly wasn't just about connecting sounds, creating pauses, or practicing breath. It was also about connecting to emotion. Because when she felt nervous, her pronunciation tightened. When she felt confident, her pronunciation opened. When she felt joyful, her voice warmed. And she understood that language and emotion are woven together like threads in the same fabric. That day, she decided to explore the emotional side of English more deeply. She began by listening to her favorite English songs, not to analyze grammar, not to focus on vocabulary, but simply to feel the emotion inside the singers' voices. She noticed how certain words stretched with feeling, how certain syllables softened with sadness, how certain sounds sharpened with excitement. She realized that singers were not speaking perfectly, they were speaking emotionally. And that emotion guided their pronunciation. She felt inspired. She whispered to herself, I want my English to feel alive. In the afternoon, she watched a short interview with an English actor. She paid attention not to the words, but to the tone. She heard how he laughed gently in the middle of a sentence. She heard how he paused softly when thinking. She heard how his voice rose when he spoke about something he loved. And she understood something new. Pronunciation is not only shaped by technique, it is shaped by the heart. When you care about what you're saying, your voice becomes clearer. When you speak with emotion, people understand you more easily. When you express yourself honestly, your pronunciation becomes warm and natural. This realization made her heart feel light. She decided to practice this idea. She chose a simple sentence, I'm happy to be here. But instead of repeating it mechanically, she spoke it with feeling. She let her voice smile. She softened the words slightly. She allowed warmth to enter her tone. And suddenly the sentence felt alive. Not perfect. Not dramatic. Just alive. She tried another sentence. I'm a little nervous. She let her voice drop gently. She allowed her breath to soften. And the sentence felt natural, honest, human. She continued practicing with different feelings, curiosity, surprise, sadness, excitement, and as she did, she discovered something beautiful. Her voice became clearer when her emotion was honest. She no longer sounded stiff. She no longer sounded like she was forcing the sounds. She sounded like herself, expressive, gentle, alive. That evening, as the sun fell and the room darkened, She lit a small candle and sat quietly with herself. She said softly, "English is becoming part of me." And then she opened the next page of the little book. The line said, "When you speak with emotion, people don't just understand your words, they understand your heart." She read it again. She felt it deeply. It reminded her of something Lila had told her at the speaking club. Clear pronunciation is not only about the mouth, it is about the message. And she realized that the message becomes stronger when emotion flows through it. The next day was Friday, the day of the English speaking club. As she walked there, she felt calm. Not perfectly confident, not without fear, but calm. Because she knew she was growing. When she arrived, everyone greeted her warmly. The room felt like a safe home, a place where voices could breathe. Lila announced the theme of the day, expressive pronunciation, learning to let your feelings shape your sound. Mira felt her heart jump softly. It was exactly what she had been exploring on her own. Lila explained, "When you speak without emotion, your pronunciation becomes flat. When you speak with emotion, your pronunciation becomes warm, clear, and easy to understand. Emotion helps the listener follow you." Lila played an audio clip of a woman telling a small story. The story was simple, but the woman's voice changed with every sentence, soothing when she was calm, nervous when she was uncertain, bright when she felt joy. The group listened carefully. And then Lila said, "Now it is your turn. Tell a short story with emotion. Don't worry about mistakes. Focus on feeling." When it was Myra's turn, she felt a small wave of nervousness pass through her. But she placed her hand on her chest, breathed deeply, and allowed the silence before speaking to calm her. She began telling a small story about her first time visiting the sea as a child. She described the cold wind, the sound of the waves, the fear she felt when the water touched her feet, and the excitement that followed. As she spoke, her voice moved naturally, sometimes quiet, sometimes warm, sometimes soft, sometimes bright. She did not force anything. She simply let her emotion guide the rhythm. And when she finished, the room was silent again, not a silence of confusion, but a silence of connection. Then someone whispered, "That felt real." Another said, "You speak with your heart." And Lila said, "This is what clear pronunciation truly sounds like, alive with feeling." After the meeting, Mira walked home with a soft glow in her chest. She felt different. She felt open. She felt like English was becoming less of a skill and more of a feeling, something she could express, something she could shape, something she could live. She realized she had reached a new point in her journey. Before, she focused on fear. Then she focused on technique. Now she was focusing on expression. And each stage had brought her closer to clarity. Over the next week, she practiced speaking with emotion during simple tasks. When she described the weather, she let her voice reflect how the sky made her feel. When she talked about her favorite food, she let her tone warm up. When she described a problem, she softened her voice with honesty. And each time she practiced, she felt her pronunciation becoming more natural, not because she was trying harder, but because she was feeling more. She learned that when she trusted her emotions, her voice followed naturally. One afternoon, while sitting at a cafe with her notebook, she overheard two English tourists chatting nearby. She listened quietly, noticing their rhythm and tone. They laughed, hesitated, paused, repeated themselves. Their pronunciation wasn't perfect, it was expressive. And it hit her. She didn't need to erase her accent. She only needed to let her emotions breathe through it. She wrote in her notebook, "My accent is not my barrier. my fear is. And this realization felt like a key unlocking a door inside her. A few days later, she decided to record a short video of herself speaking English, not for posting online, not for sharing, but simply to observe her progress. She recorded a 2-minute story about her week. She focused on breathing, rhythm, emotion. When she played the video back, her eyes widened softly. She heard a voice that sounded real, clear, natural, expressive. Not perfect, but alive. She whispered to herself, "That's me." And for the first time in her life, she liked how she sounded in English. That night, before going to bed, she opened the little book one more time. The next sentence said, "When your English becomes a feeling, your voice finally becomes free." She felt tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude. Her voice was becoming free. Her heart was becoming brave. Her pronunciation was becoming clear. Now, as you listen to this story, I want you to reflect gently on your own journey. Your pronunciation will improve not only through practice, not only through techniques, but through emotion. When you speak with feeling, your voice becomes natural. When you speak honestly, your pronunciation softens. When you let your heart enter the words, people understand you, not only with their ears, but with their hearts. So whisper to yourself now, softly and kindly, "I speak with feeling." Let your voice feel warm. Let your breath feel free. Because like Mira, you are learning not only to pronounce English, you are learning to feel it. The morning that changed everything for Mira began in the gentlest way possible, with a soft light touching her eyelids and a warm stillness in the air, as if the world itself wanted to whisper, "Something special is coming." She opened her eyes slowly, feeling a quiet excitement inside her chest, though she didn't know why at first. Then she remembered. Today, she had to give a short English presentation at the community center's open practice event. It wasn't a big event. It wasn't formal. It wasn't competitive. But for her, it felt big enough to make her heart flutter. She sat up, placed her feet on the floor, and breathed in deeply. She whispered the same sentence she had been saying every morning, "My voice is becoming clearer every day." Then she stood in front of the mirror, looked into her own eyes, and added a new sentence, "And today, my voice will stand tall." She smiled softly at the reflection, still shy, still gentle, still learning, but stronger than before. The topic of her presentation was simple: how learning English changed my confidence. She had prepared a few ideas, but she didn't want to memorize sentences. She wanted to speak naturally, with emotion, with pauses, with the new rhythm she had been practicing. She wanted her voice to feel alive. She practiced a few lines out loud, letting the words flow slowly. When she entered the community center, she saw people setting up chairs in a semicircle. Lila waved at her from across the room with a warm, encouraging smile. "Mira, you're here early," she said. "That's a good sign." Mira laughed softly. "I wanted to breathe first," she said. Lila nodded as if she understood completely. "Remember," she whispered, "your voice belongs in this room." Those words went straight to Myra's heart. She held them close as she took her seat. Soon, more people arrived: students, teachers, neighbors, beginners, confident speakers, nervous speakers. Some were chatting, some were reviewing notes, some were simply watching quietly. The atmosphere was warm and open. When everyone was ready, the open practice session began. People shared small stories, simple introductions, descriptions of their hobbies, memories from childhood. Some spoke quickly, some slowly, some with strong accents, some with softer ones. But everyone shared the same goal: to grow. As Mira listened, she felt connected to everyone in the room. She heard the courage in their voices. She saw the small trembles in their hands. She felt the emotion in their stories. And she realized that she was not alone. Everyone was learning. Everyone had fears. Everyone had dreams. And suddenly, her own fear began to soften. Finally, Lila stood up and said, "Next, we will hear from Mira. She has prepared something special for us." Mira felt her heart jump, but she stood up slowly. She walked to the front of the room. She held her hands gently together so they wouldn't shake. She looked at the faces around her, kind, patient, open. She breathed in. She remembered the silence. She remembered the rhythm. She remembered the emotion. She remembered the sentence she spoke that morning, "Today, my voice will stand tall." And then she began. She spoke slowly. "Hello, everyone. My name is Mira. And today, I want to share something personal." She let a soft pause rest in the air. She felt the room become still. "When I first started learning English, I was scared of every sound. I worried about every mistake. I tried to hide my accent. I tried to speak fast so people wouldn't see my fear." Her voice softened. But something changed. "I learned that my voice is not something I need to hide. My accent is not a problem. My mistakes are not a failure. They are signs that I am learning, signs that I am growing." As she continued, her voice warmed. She spoke about the moment she realized pronunciation was not only about technique, but about breath, emotion, rhythm, and silence. She spoke about the first time her voice felt free. She spoke about the lessons that helped her connect words gently, speak slowly, and let her feelings guide her intonation. She spoke about the speaking club, about Lila, about the little book she carried with her every day. And as she talked, she noticed something surprising. Her voice was steady. Her words flowed. Her pauses felt natural. Her emotions were clear. Her fear was quiet. At one point, she even laughed softly as she told the story of shadowing a recording while walking home and accidentally copying the speaker's laugh out loud, making a passerby stare. The room laughed gently with her. She felt connected. She felt seen. She felt understood. And then she reached the end of her short presentation. She looked around the room and said in a soft, warm voice, "Learning English helped me learn courage. It helped me hear my own voice. And now, every time I speak, I feel like I am meeting myself again." She paused again, one last gentle pause, and added, "And I hope you can feel your voice too." When she finished, the room stayed silent for a moment. She recognized that silence. It was the same silence she had created during her storytelling exercises, a silence of connection, a silence of emotion, a silence that said, "We heard you." Then the room filled with gentle applause. Lila's eyes sparkled. Someone said, "That felt real." Another voice whispered, "You spoke with calm strength." And Mira felt her chest warm with a deep sense of pride, not loud pride, not showy pride, but quiet, grounded pride. After the session ended, several people approached her. A young man said, "Your pauses helped me understand you so clearly." A woman added, "Your voice feels soft, but powerful." Someone else said, "I wish I could speak with such calm energy." Mira smiled, not because she thought she was perfect, but because she knew she had grown. She had stepped into the light. She had let her voice stand tall. When she walked out of the community center, the sky was turning golden. She walked slowly, letting the warmth of the day sink into her skin. She felt the rhythm of her steps match the rhythm of her breath. For the first time, she felt like English was truly part of her, not a subject she studied, but a voice she carried. She whispered, "Thank you," to the wind, to the universe, to the little book in her bag, to her own heart. That evening, she sat by her window as she always did. She opened the little book and found the next sentence. "Your voice becomes strong when your heart believes it belongs." She read it again, and again, and again. Then she closed her eyes. She placed her hand over her heart, and she whispered softly, "My voice belongs." Now, as you listen to this moment in her journey, I want you to reflect gently on your own. No matter where you are, no matter what your accent sounds like, no matter how many mistakes you make, your voice deserves to stand tall. Your voice deserves to be heard. Your voice belongs in any language you choose to speak. So breathe softly. Feel your chest rise. And whisper to yourself, "My voice belongs here."